Now for the front of the motorcycle, I decided to get this extremely expensive, the technology that went into this headlight, right, and the craftsmanship is bar none. This is the Chinese Special Model 101. No, I'm just kidding. So instead of deciding to spend, you know, up to $1,000 on a pair of a Daymaker with the passing lights, I decided to hop on Amazon and get one of their Chinese knockoffs. So we'll see how this one goes. Or I should say, I read a lot of reviews on this particular type of headlight, and like I said, people seem to be having pretty good luck, and it's definitely brighter than the stock incandescent bulbs or halogen bulbs that are in it. I even thought about possibly just replacing the internal bulbs with LED inserts, but I was hearing mixed reviews and whatnot, and the big thing that they were complaining about with those was that you're not getting that brightness, right? So based on the fact that these LEDs are designed to go with these projectors, I figured this might be a better route to go. Cost was relatively affordable. I mean, very affordable. You could probably get 3 or 4 or 5 of these as a cost to getting one of the other Daymakers. So this is pretty much what I have going on so far. So let's get to it. Okay, the next task today is to change out these headlights and passing lights with LED Daymakers. Now, one thing I went out and purchased was, as I showed you in some of the equipment that I got, was some Daymaker knockoffs off Amazon. They're some sort of Chinese-made version, which is slightly different than all the other Chinese version Daymakers you can get from name brand manufacturers, since pretty much all these Daymakers are made in China. The main thing you're probably going to sacrifice, I would think, would probably be a little bit in quality of some of the components, but I'll do a long-term review on this particular setup that I'm going to install, and let you guys know how they stood up in regards to the bulb life, if anything burnt out sooner than I thought it should, weatherproofing, if anything started to fog up or get condensation or moisture inside of it, or if the lenses started to yellow or get scratched relatively easily from use. So like I said, it's an experiment, so I can take you guys all along, and you can make the determination of whether or not you want to spend around $100 for a complete setup, or whether or not you want to go $400 or all the way up to $800 or more for the Harley Davidson Daymakers. Now, Harley Davidson did come out with a new Daymaker just recently. It's adaptive, so what it actually does is move in regards in the direction that you're turning. So as you turn, the headlights on the side will light up facing the direction that you're turning, to help light up the area into the turn, which is pretty sweet, but obviously that comes with a price. So anyways, let's get going with this disassembly. First thing you start off with, I'm going to do the main light first. I have a trim ring on here, this little visored trim ring. You have a screw up under the bottom here that you're going to have to remove. Now, I've been told that when you reassemble, you have to get a longer screw. So I'm hoping I have one in here in the garage, and I don't necessarily need to run to the store to get one. So that fit around the stock assembly here. Now you have this other screw right down in here that you have to remove. It's this other retaining ring. Looks like you have a bit of a washer in here too. And it takes that to your main assembly. So this right here is the I want to call it an adjustment ring, but it's ultimately for adjusting the headlight in the various directions. Now the new one comes with a ring already attached to it. Sometimes you can reutilize the stock. It's preferred because it's already adjusted in regards to you know, aiming on the road. But you know, I'm going to go ahead and just take out the headlight, which is just going to be these screws right here, which will just take the headlight off, and I'll test fit the other unit. If it doesn't work, then I'll go ahead and reassemble it, and I'll take out these other screws, which will take out that whole, actually all these screws around here, and I'll take out the whole adjustment, and I'll put the whole thing in, back in there. Well, the reason why you sometimes can and cannot use the stock the adjustment ring is because the thickness of the new LED light is quite a bit more. It's quite a bit more than the stock incandescent. Stick. Okay. So one thing you probably want to make sure that you do is identify which one is the high and which one are the low beams. The reason being is because in order to get this to work, you actually had to purchase another, because the new LED has one connector. So in order, it has this one kind of 3-prong flat. I think it's more of an old school connector. And you need to be able to plug it into these two separate connectors. So you have a low beam and a high beam. So you definitely got to make sure you know which one you're plugging into. So in this particular model, the low beam's the top beam, and the high beam's top beam, and then the high beam's the bottom beam. So we're going to go ahead and plug these one at a time. There we go. So we know that that one is the low beam. So go ahead and plug the low beam into low beam. And we know the other one is going to be the high beam. Okay, so all we got to do is be able to plug that back into there. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of test fit the stock or the factory ring, and it fits in there and it doesn't have any interference from the back, and the stock trim ring will fit right over it. So as opposed to using the, I should say, the more inferior products, and go ahead and just use the headlight. Plug that sucker up there. Push all the cables through. Can we add this trim ring back on? When at all possible, using the factory components is definitely preferred. And the fact that I could use the stock adjustment ring, that's just going to help with the fact that I probably will not have to align this thing much. What I did is went ahead and reattached the this trim ring. I put the smaller ring that actually holds the headlight on, and then I put the trim ring on the outside of it. The only thing I'll have to do is to put this final trim ring over the top of the whole assembly. And that's kind of a nice little lipped ring that I got. Now, based on the fact that I hadn't had to replace any of the components, it wasn't sticking out any farther, this should go back on just fine with the stock bolt, which is awesome. That means I don't have to go down to the store. Okay, so one thing I noticed, I was discussing the fact that when I had hooked this up, it was only working on high beams. On low beams it wasn't doing anything.
I also noticed that my passing lights weren't coming on. That was more due to a problem, something at the dealership. When I had taken it down there the other day, they had turned something off that I normally leave on. So what I did is on the actual back of the headlight itself, the connector had the one 3-prong that I had showed you, and it went in and had the two high-low. Now the high-low were set correctly, but I had to reverse them. So even though the tabs technically should only go one way, it's probably because it's the way the adapter was or whatnot. I was putting them the way they should have gone, but I reversed both of them, and now it's working as it should be. Low beam on, when it's low beam, turn the high beam on, high beam comes on. So now we're back in business, working as intended. Everything should be good. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working on these passing lights and show you guys how to do that. So one thing you're going to notice is on these plugs, see on the stock factory plugs, there's a slot on the top. That only fits one way inside of the slash passing light. These don't have a slot. So on this one, I put it on one way, it didn't come on. Turned it upside down, came on. So that's this whole situation with this whole thing, is flipping plugs around because they can orientate themselves any way they want. Leave it up to the Chinese not to make it simple for you. But so far, it seems to be working. So we're going to go ahead and put that guy in there and test. I have chosen wisely. So one of the problems that people have been having is trying to get the larger diameter and thicker lipped passing lights to fit in the housing and get everything attached with the stock bezel. Since mine has this foam cushion in it, it kind of gives a little bit more. And I have noticed on mine that I can use, some people have been omitting this. Problem with that is that it won't, it can have a tendency of twisting. By installing this, there's a locking slot that's down here at the bottom. So if this is in here correctly, it'll keep it from spinning. So. Okay, keep the orientation the same. Put the ring on. Plug back in there, and now we're in business. So I know this is a DOT SAE. I put that at the top, and I put the little tab at the bottom. And then get that guy in there like that. And then once we have that kind of situated, and that pretty much attaches as so. So now for the reveal. I will say these things are quite a bit brighter than these stock both passing lights and headlight. The turn signals are looking pretty sweet as well. Everything seems to be functioning as it should. Go ahead and show you that. This is with the high beam on. You can see it shuts off the passing lights because I haven't disabled that feature. And you can see the turn signals operating. Again, I want to thank you for watching. If you like this video, please go ahead and press that like button. If you haven't already, please go ahead and push that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys later.